great news.
What?
I'm no longer dying, meaning I can finally return and rip into F1 drivers again. Okay, truth is I'm still dying, but this is my main revenue stream now, so just bear with me this week as I sound like a 60-year-old chain smoker. Hey there guys, I'm Will and welcome to FP1, the channel that's creative enough to think of all the jokes, but isn't creative enough to make its own intro. And it's been a while, and I do just want to start by thanking everybody for all the well wishes in the last 3 weeks. And also hats off to the guy that pointed out I started to get ill the moment my Mazepin merch arrived. I guess they really are trying to silence their biggest fan, huh? Anyway, this week it was time for the US Grand Prix, with Formula 1 returning to the track that's basically just a worse version of all the best corners from the European calendar. Which kind of sums up America in general if you think about it. Guess it's time to plug myself, so if you end up enjoying today's video and want to see more, it would really help me out if you liked it and subscribe to the channel down below. And if you want to feature in the intro to these videos, drop me a follow over on Twitter as well. Anyway, it's been almost a month, so let's not keep you waiting any longer and get into the comedy review of the US Grand Prix. So, quite a lot has happened since the last comedy review I did for Russia, as well as that entire race weekend I missed. Might be a good place to start here then, and the main takeaways from the weekend were as follows. Bottas can still win races provided #Blessed gets an engine penalty, the stewards aren't part of the Pierre Gasly stan crew on Twitter, and that Nikita Mazepin, having seen more blue flags than I have rejections, still thinks they mean let the car behind through Mark Webber style. In other news, Mercedes has spent the last week going through more engines than Valtteri Bottas has pro athletes. Porridge Man himself, as well as George Russell and Sebastian Vettel, all taking grid drops this weekend. Finally, Nikita Mazepin got his visitor of the month in Callum Ilott, with the team making sure they were separated by a screen after what happened to them last time. And Red Bull held an accurate promotional video where the drivers showed they knew nothing about the brand powering them to wins this season.
Who's this guy?
Though, in their defense, the questions weren't particularly great either.
How many past champions previously wore Acura visors for the North American races? This is fucking bullshit.
With us all caught up, let's jump into first practice at the Circuit of the Americas, and it was Mercedes dealing the first blow, with Bottas topping the timesheets fresh off his win in Turkey. Similar fortunes couldn't be said for Fernando Alonso, however, as his Alpine became the quickest French thing to throw up the white flag since the whole country did at the start of World War II. Alonso wasn't the only one running into trouble in FP1, with Kimi Raikkonen testing if his Alpha was any quicker sideways through turn 9, and Charles Leclerc experimenting with track limits towards the end of the session as well. There was a little bit more drama to cover in FP1, but for that, I think you all know what it's time for.
Bunch of wanko.
With it being Haas's home race this weekend, people were wondering if the rookie pairing of Nikita Mazepin and Mick Schumacher could pull a miracle at the Circuit of the Americas. And by people, I clearly mean anyone who hasn't watched a second of F1 this season. Mad Lad Maz himself appeared to be doing slow laps for the fans throughout FP1, ending the session 7 seconds off the pace of the leading Mercedes. He was even nice enough to show the home crowd his trademark move coming through the penultimate corner. Mick Schumacher was also in the wars, and Sergio Perez clearly mistook him for Nikita, overtaking him like he was fighting for the DTM World Championship down the back straight. And we'll return to Haas watch a little bit later, but before that let's cover the rest of practice, which in fairness was slightly less action-packed than the first. The main takeaways from FP2 and 3 was the surprising form of Sergio Perez, who may have just accidentally stepped into the wrong Red Bull chassis as he topped the standings of both sessions. His teammate Max Verstappen was up at the top of the times as well, getting into a spicy battle with Lewis Hamilton heading into turn 1.
Stupid idiot.
Meanwhile, Alonso's relationship with his Alpine got worse as he became the first car to kiss the barriers, and Bottas, having managed to somehow not spin out in Turkey, made up for lost time on Saturday morning. But with practice now covered, let's get into Saturday qualifying, and straight away Mr. Steal Your Lap Nikita Mazepin was back on form, causing trouble for Sebastian Vettel in Q1 and ending the session 2.6 seconds off the pace.
I was a bit upset that I lost quite some time in the last sector, around 2-3 tenths, with a few cars stopped on my apex.
Bro, what the f***? Aston Martin's Lance Stroll would be the shock loss from Q1 in the end, with Antonio Giovinazzi making it through and attempting some celebratory spinning as a result. Q2 would end up being your more standard affair, with the other Aston of Vettel joining Russell, Gio and the two Alpines in the drop zone. But it was the third and final part of qualifying that everyone was looking forward to, however, with neither Verstappen or Hamilton topping a session all weekend, and the fight further back between McLaren and Ferrari hotting up as well. And it was about to get even more exciting, with Sergio Perez ending the first set of runs as the man on provisional pole. With Red Bull bosses in shock at how the Dutch Messiah could have been beaten, the Mercedes attempted to fire back. #Bless briefly returning to the top of the times before Verstappen took us back to reality, slotting his car into pole position for Sunday's race. All that meant the two championship protagonists were likely to end up side by side into turn 1 again, so let's not waste any more time and find out what happened. The front row would get good starts, but it was Hamilton on the attack as we headed down into turn 1. With both Lewis and Max side by side into the first corner, normally we'd expect a massive accident, though to the shock of everybody, they both emerged in one piece. The same couldn't be said for the Canadians of Lance Stroll and Nicholas Latifi, however, the pair hoping for good effective home races in Austin. Instead, Latifi turned his Williams into a pile driver and punted himself and his countrymen out of contention early on. While all this was taking place, a fantastic scrap between the McLarens and Ferraris was brewing at the front, Sainz and Ricciardo going wheel to wheel, with the Aussie winning out after a lap-long battle. And with strategy expected to play a big role in the race, Mercedes would have wanted Porridge Man to have made some inroads into the midfield by now. However, since it wasn't World Porridge Day anymore, he was back to being useless as he struggled to pass Yuki Tsunoda. Instead, he would fall behind Yuki's teammate Pierre Gasly and would only get back past the Frenchman once his suspension decided it couldn't be bothered anymore. So heading into the first round of pit stops, Hamilton edged Verstappen marginally, but it was Red Bull who pitted first, Max showing some rapid pace on fresh hard tyres. So with a Red Bull charging you down at multiple seconds per lap, you'd think it might be a good idea just to pit, right? Well, no, not if you're Mercedes anyway, who waited 3 whole laps, meaning by the time the Brit was back out, he had a 6-second margin to make up to Verstappen. It was at this point in the race where it began to settle down a little bit, and normally at this point I would order a Subway or something, though since it was now 9 at night, it meant I could drink alcohol instead, which made the second half of the race and the making of this video much more enjoyable. So while Hamilton and Verstappen sat in limbo, Alonso was spending his afternoon bullying the two Alfa Romeos of Raikkonen and Giovinazzi. First, he attempted to reshape Kimi's underfloor, before forgetting he had a brake pedal and a dive bomb move on Giovinazzi. By now, the FIA were beginning to intervene, telling Fernando to give the position back and telling Alpine to stop acting like 7-year-old schoolchildren. And as this was going on, it was time to focus back on the leading pair once again, as Verstappen attempted another undercut and Mercedes opted to stay out again, despite that working out so brilliantly last time. This would at least treat the fans to a spectacular end of the race, with Hamilton closing down on a limping Verstappen, as Red Bull attempted to make its tyres go the distance. Also working against Max were his own organisation, with sister team driver Yuki Tsunoda being unveiled as Mercedes' undercover operative all along, holding up the Dutchman as Hamilton closed in. But it wouldn't be enough, and come the end of lap 56, Verstappen crossed the line in P1, just a second ahead of #Blessed in the Mercedes. So at the end of the day then, it was a pretty good race, and arguably one of the best that we've had at the Circuit of Americas. I know a lot of people said it was boring on Twitter, but part of me feels that that's only because the chasing car didn't win, and because it's Twitter and they're mostly thick as pig shit anyway. But if you enjoyed the video, please do leave a like and subscribe for more content in the very near future. I'm hoping to be back to full health by the Mexican Grand Prix, so you won't have to put up with this voice for much longer. But if you've managed to put up with me for this long, well, congratulations to you. Anyway, I'll be back soon with another video, but until then, have a good one.